For all its beauty, winter is a time of vulnerability. As the days shorten and temperatures drop, perhaps gathering with loved ones is instinctual. Today on Across the Fence, we're exploring the many ways different cultural and faith traditions celebrate this season of light and dark, gathering to create community, comfort, and joy. Hello, Vermont. I grew up with Advent candles, and this year I lit the menorah with friends at Hanukkah celebration. My daughter was born December 21st, so in years past, we've celebrated her birthday with a big solstice bonfire. Spot the common thread linking these winter celebrations? Fire, symbolizing warmth, connection, and continuity. Even Sagittarius, birth sign of those born between November 22nd and December 21st, me included, is a fire sign. So, what's going on? That's a great question for my guest today. The Reverend Dr. James Ross is the director of UVM's Interfaith Center and the senior director of the university's Intercultural Centers. I am so pleased to have him join me today to talk about culture, faith, and spirituality in the dark days of winter. Reverend Ross, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am very happy to have you here today, too. So let's start with the notion of celebration. In general, right? Because we have a tradition of celebrating in winter. Why do we have it? And for that matter, who is the we in that question? Who's we? Who celebrates in winter?
So that's a really great question, and I think the we can encompass anyone, right?
Yeah.
So we have people who observe a particular faith, who observe these celebrations, who practice these celebrations. We have people who are culturally members of religious traditions who celebrate, and then we have people who aren't a part of traditions who celebrate just because it's so much a part of who we are in our culture. For example, you talked about your traditions as a child.
Yeah.
So as you probably know, there are people who are Jewish who are celebrating Hanukkah right now. Both people who are religiously Jewish and people who are culturally Jewish, meaning that is their cultural identity, but they don't necessarily have a strong connection religiously.
Very similar amongst, I grew up Catholic, very similar. We have a lot of Catholics who are like, yeah, I go to Mass at Christmas, I go to Mass at Easter.
Absolutely.
Because it's a part of like a cultural extension of how I grew up.
Absolutely. And I think that you asked why this is. I mean, you sort of hit on some of that, right? I think there are reasons when we look at our faith histories that some of these things connect together because their stories are connected in a lot of ways, but particularly among the Abrahamic religions, right? But also...
Well, holidays, does it come from holy days?
Okay,
point. There we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
And so here we think about the timing of year, though, as you mentioned, is really important because maybe our historic traditions are connected to these times. Originally, maybe not.
Right. We could have been moving things around the calendar and having them fit well.
But it's a great time
reasons,
because we do think a lot about, this is a time when it is getting darker. We have this light. We bring this light into our lives in ways that are both physical, like you talked about lighting menorahs,
genuinely lighting
but
candles.
Also ways that are about, wanting to bring a light of hope. And so many of these traditions do focus on hopefulness and the ways that we're connected together.
Yeah, right. So I talked a little bit about, we talked a tiny bit, alluded to Christmas, to Hanukkah, to the solstice. Do you want to talk a little bit about Kwanzaa? Because that also kind of rounds out some of the things that are being celebrated at this time
Absolutely. So Kwanzaa begins on December 26th, and it is I would say a cultural celebration that is celebrated primarily within African American communities, but of course all people are invited to share, as in all of these other traditions, right? And it really focuses on each day has a theme, and they include things like unity and self-determination and community uplift. It really focuses on the importance of community. So it sort of assumes and operates with the idea that our lives are necessarily dependent on one another. But within that, there also is personal responsibility. So, I think in many places there are lots of ways to celebrate. So I think there are opportunities to take that in. and just each day focuses on one of those, and we can learn more about that.
I love these multi-day celebrations. That was something I thought that growing up, I liked how Advent extended the season, because for many weeks before Christmas, and you would have one thing too that you would focus on in that particular week, so peace or joy, etc. So like providing that moment of reflection. It feels like reflection is a kind of an ongoing theme in the spiritual practices of the holidays, and then that connects with then how we get together with family, and then we can have family reflection as well. Yeah. What commonalities do you see in these different traditions? And we didn't talk a lot about solstice, so maybe I don't know, continuity, but then also what do you see? Because solstice, I was reading something last night on the internet, so I mean, be careful what you read on the internet, right? Social media. But at the same time, yes, that there are so many elements of the solstice tradition of Yule that infiltrate and are reflected in particularly, say, some of the holiday traditions associated with Christmas, even things like hanging evergreen branches, etc. Lighting candles too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Yule really, which is some would say a pagan holiday, right? So it really connects to this idea of the winter solstice, right? And when we talk about that, we're talking about the time when the day is the shortest and the night is the longest. You talked about the connections with various traditions. So you mentioned some, but even things like celebrations within the Christian tradition, like you may have heard Blue Christmas or something like that. And that's usually acknowledging that for a lot of people this isn't necessarily a joyful time, and so there will be services often on that night that sort of bring people together for that time of reflection and that time of maybe even mourning, even amid the celebrations of the holiday.
Right. Because holidays can be also, yes, for people it can be, you know, if you don't have, if you're missing family members, etc., it can be a real time of feeling poignantly that sense of loss.
Absolutely.
Or disconnection.
Absolutely. Obviously, there are times when many of us get together, we share with our families, with our friends, but it also, as you mentioned, can be challenging for a lot of reasons, right? Because we're physically separated from people, because there are fissures in relationships, because people are no longer with us on earth. So, yeah.
Well, what do you think our holiday celebrations teach us about like spiritual or cultural traditions generally? Why do some of us feel a need to practice or observe?
I think that there are reasons that relate to our spirituality and our culture, right? So the pieces that relate to our spirituality, many of our traditions with our celebrations at this time of year really are about hope, as I said. So even when we are feeling darkness or heaviness in our lives in other ways, it's an opportunity for that connection to hope and to think about how good things emerge amid challenging moments. And then culturally, it's an opportunity for reconnection, for reflection, as we talked about, for thinking about who we are, who we have been, and who we want to be together.
This feels like a good segue into the Interfaith Center. Tell us a little bit about it. What's the mission?
I'm so excited about the work the Interfaith Center does. We exist to promote religious and spiritual pluralism on the UVM campus and elsewhere. And by that we mean we really want to ensure that we create an environment where everyone can observe, practice, or learn about the religion, faith, or tradition of their choice. And often that means the one that they have a history with, but often it means others, right? And the thing that I enjoy about, when we talk about pluralism, what we mean is that we know that diversity exists. We know that people have all types of different experiences and backgrounds and ways of being in the world. But pluralism assumes that there is value in that diversity, that there is something that we learn from each other, that we are stronger together. And that is an accomplishment. It doesn't happen easily. So that is the work that we seek to do.
That's very important work.
I think it is.
I think it is too. So what does the Interfaith Center bring to the campus community? I mean, besides, besides on like the philosophical level, but resources, opportunities for gathering, etc.
So we think about our work as providing space in a couple of different ways. So beginning with our physical space. So we have a building on campus that lots of student groups and lots of other faith organizations have the opportunity to use for their services, for meetings, for events. We have a prayer and meditation room that anybody can use at any time for a moment of silence. We have a way for people to sort of ritually cleanse themselves before prayers, if that's something that is important to them. We have what we call the gathering hall, which is sort of a big space. I mean, it was a former church, right? So it's what was the sanctuary at one point, but it's a very flexible space that people use for meetings, for gatherings, for events. And then there are other spaces as well. So that's what we offer in terms of physical space. But we also say that we want to create the space for people to have the kind of practice that they want.
Which is why it's so important to have this on campus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we do that by a variety of events that we host. One of the long-standing ones is our dinner and dialogue, which is exactly what it sounds like. We offer a wonderful meal, and we bring people together to talk about an issue related to faith, religion, or spirituality. It's sort of semi-programmed. We have some questions to sort of provoke conversation, but mostly it's an opportunity for people to hear from each other. When I first came to UVM, I had my doubts about whether this was an effective program or not. And when I went the first time, I thought, oh, I get it now. Because what I was reminded of is that people really love to hear from each other about their experiences and think about what that means for them.
I think sometimes in talking with someone else about your faith, it's how you also start to understand your faith a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I think sometimes
and it's not always, it doesn't feel like campus environments are not always places where people feel comfortable talking about faith. It can be an environment of the mind which can be separated from the idea of the spirit.
Absolutely. I think there's actually often fear of talking about faith in some of those environments. But I think of it as a part of our holistic being, right? So not everybody has a faith tradition, but many people do. And whether you do or not, what you bring related to that is a part of your makeup, right? That's a part of who you are. So when we pretend or act as though it doesn't exist, I think we fail to see the full humanity of people. There are ways to engage it that are respectful and appropriate in all environments, I think.
And seeing the full humanity of people is, I think, something that every campus environment, every environment in general can benefit from.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Ross, Reverend Ross, thank you so much. This has been a lovely conversation. I can't wait to have you back on the show again.
I look forward to it.
We could do this many times in the future.
I look forward to it.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
And happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well.
Yes. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.